So let's see. Oh, so a couple things. I'll probably say this maybe one or two more times, but just so you know, obviously introduce yourself. Also, if you have any questions during my workshop, please ask. The way to do that, there's no like the hand raise doesn't really work with this setup with Zoom and everything, and you're all muted, so I don't get to hear you. It's really the only downside of doing these kinds of larger workshops. But you can submit questions via the Q&A feature, which is up here. Sorry about that. Which is up here in the more section. You can see Q&A, and then you can open that up. And then the nice thing about having that open is that not only can you see, you can add your own questions, but you can see other people's questions. And so that's always good. I welcome questions. I may not, depending upon kind of how they are, I may not get to them during the workshop, but I will absolutely get to them at the end of the workshop. I do not like to leave questions unanswered. So I'm happy to stick around afterwards and answer any questions you might have. We're going to see. So someone said that they don't see the Q&A. So if you're looking, I don't know if you can see my menu bar for Zoom, but if you are looking at your menu bar, there should be a three dots more button. And when you open that up, there should be a Q&A feature. And when you click on that, it opens up a window. So I hope that helps. Um, um, I'm sorry, Misty, that upset you about sharing your email. Um, someone, Letitia's saying the Q&A section may be at the bottom of the screen near the raise hand feature. Um, oh, in New York, so Sakura Park is in New York City. Ah, I feel like I should know that. I'm sorry, Nancy. Thank you. And so we're going to be together about 60 minutes, give or take. But again, I'll stay over if there are any questions. The chat will remain open. I will not pay attention to the chat during the workshop because I can't do two things at once like that. I'll just get distracted and then I won't know what I'm talking about, and it won't be good for any of us. So, but you're welcome to talk to each other in the chat. Historically, the chats for my workshops have been wonderful, really good people just supporting each other. I highly recommend that. Obviously, please be kind and caring and compassionate with each other. And then, just as a friendly reminder, that um, I will share the recording of this and the slide deck tomorrow. Um, Probably, I'm in California, so sometime in the morning, my time, which may be early afternoon, your time, depending on where you are. But so just so you know, but I'll send that out tomorrow. And I usually send that, I post that in Meetup and I send it through Meetup's announcement feature, or I'll send you an email. But you should be get it a couple of ways, and hopefully at least one of them will um, you'll get. And if you don't, then just ask me. So we've got, let's see. Okay. We've got a little over 80 people. I think we were probably expecting somewhere in this 85 to 100 range. So I think we probably can get started. So, okay, what we're going to talk about today is sleep. I'm just shrinking the chat because otherwise I will get so distracted. We're going to talk about sleep, and primarily we're going to talk about how your nervous system and sleep come together. So again, feel free to introduce yourself if you haven't already. Questions through the Q&A feature. We'll be here for 60 minutes, give or take. Chat is opened. Is open, and I'll send you the recording and the slide deck tomorrow at some point in the morning, my time. So, the art of sleep, how nervous system regulation helps you get the rest you need. So, really, we're going to be talking about sleep, but we're also going to be talking about um, what you can do during the day to help you be able to rest at night. And that's really the key that we're going to talk about. I'm Jeremy Schneider. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a licensed master social work. Also have a master's in family therapy. I'm a certified life coach. I teach practical tools for emotional triggers, self-compassion, and staying present when the past shows up. I'm all about trying to help you be able to respond to life instead of just reacting to it in the way that you have for most of your existence because of whatever traumas, challenges that you've been through. I do free workshops, I do coaching intensives, I do coaching groups, and I do individual coaching. So, yes, it's mostly around coaching. So well, I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. I also have a column in Psychology Today on AI and mental health. If that is something that interests you, um, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But my next free workshop is actually on AI and mental health. And I'm doing a lot of writing and everything in this realm. So if that interests you, just let me know. Okay. So I think we all understand that sleep is important, right? There's some significant physical and emotional benefits. I want to highlight that when we don't have enough sleep, there are some things that make our life more difficult. It's not just the exhaustion, but it's the way that the exhaustion plays out with us. And so a good example of that are emotional triggers that we have, particularly from our childhood, they'll feel more magnified and more overwhelming. We'll find that minor problems can feel almost insurmountable. We'll find that self-care, which is crucial to this life that we want to live in terms of our healing journey and in terms of experiencing joy, that becomes very difficult to maintain. Honestly, it's also just really difficult to make decisions and our judgment becomes impaired. Um, and so I don't say that to say like you have to get sleep, but just I really want to help open you up to the idea that sleep doesn't just start at 10 o'clock at night or whenever it is that you're getting ready for bed, but it's something that we can be thinking about during the day. And that's what we're going to focus on primarily for the first, half to the two-thirds of this workshop. So, as I was saying, good sleep starts during the day. We're going to be talking about how to really care for yourself during the day so that you can sleep better in the evening. And I think another thing that I want you to think about is we have a tendency to think like, oh, I can't get sleep. There's something wrong with me, or I can't do this well, or whatever it is, right? And what I want you to kind of think about too is like, poor sleep may be actually a message saying to us, hey, there's a problem. We need to probably figure out what's going on. And that is a sign for us to say, hey, we got to address our nervous system. We got to address some of these mental health challenges that we're not dealing with. So, again, we'll talk some about all of this. But let's start with what your nervous system is. So, it's your body's command center. And again, I apologize, but I just keep getting stuff on my glasses, even though I just cleaned them. Uh, It's your body's command center. It's a complex communication network, and it coordinates all of your actions, right? All of your nerves, all of your movements, all of your controlled movements, but also all of your autonomic functions, right? The things that happen in your body that you don't think about, digestion, breathing, heart rate, things like that. When it feels safe, we feel safe. It's easier for us to think clearly, connect with other people, take care of ourselves. When we feel threatened, we shift into that fight, flight, freeze, fawn mode. I'm just going to call it fight, flight because there's a lot of F's to say all over and over again, but you get the idea. And so again, it's the idea that our nervous system is just constantly on guard, trying to figure out whether we're safe or not. And we predominantly live a lifestyle because of how hectic it is, because of how stressful it can be, that we're constantly activating our nervous system to be in this fight or flight mode, which is why for so many of us, it's hard to sleep. So your autonomic nervous system, which is the part of your nervous system that governs involuntary functions, right? Again, this is the heartbeat, the breathing, digestion, all of that kind of stuff. There are two parts of your autonomic nervous system, and that's really what we're going to focus on today. First, I just think it's fascinating every time I talk about this that we take about 20 to 25,000 breaths per day. That's a lot of breaths. How often are you aware that you are breathing? I feel like on a really good day, I know I've taken maybe 50 breaths. That is a small portion of 20 to 25,000 breaths. So just again, our body is kind of wild and amazing, and it just does some incredible things on its own. Again, I'm sorry if you have questions. Again, the best way to do that is through the Q&A feature. Just post them in the Q&A, and I'll try to address them as quickly as I can. The sympathetic nervous system. So again, there's the two parts of the um, autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic and there's the parasympathetic. So the sympathetic nervous system, that's our body's fight or flight. That's kind of like what helps, what is sort of controlled by the amygdala, which is in the back of our brain, right? That's our fight or flight. But it's not just that we're looking at a saber-toothed tiger and freaking out. It's not that we're standing in the middle of a highway and a car is racing towards us that we feel danger. It's also that we feel danger when we're acting as if there's danger, right? If there's this constant stress of having to do the next thing, of having to move forward, do this, go to that, and then this, that makes our nervous system feel like we are in risk, that we are in danger. And so it's really also just thinking about the things that we do that help inadvertently activate our sympathetic nervous system, that activate our fight or flight response. Our parasympathetic nervous system is the other side of that. That's the brake. That's the one that helps us rest and digest. It's what helps us calm down. It slows our heart rate, conserves our energy, right? It is what helps us get ready for actual sleep. So you can just see real quick that we're going to spend the rest of tonight talking about how do we go from the sympathetic nervous system being on to the parasympathetic nervous system being on. And so we want to deactivate our fight or flight and activate our parasympathetic nervous system, the calming part. And that's really what we're going to spend most of tonight focusing on. To help you kind of get a picture of what this is like, the best way I could come up with is your nervous system is a speeding train. It's just speeding along the tracks. And what we need to do is figure out how to help slow it down, right? The problem is most people go full speed all day long, and then at night, boom, they just stop and they think, oh, I should be fine. I should be ready to get some sleep. But the reality is a speeding train can't stop that fast, right? It makes that horrible braking sound and you get pushed forward and what ends up happening is it leads to a racing mind. So even though you've said, okay, I'm going to stop, your nervous system is still in that mode. So your nervous system is still acting as if it is at risk, that there's danger. It's still in fight or flight mode. It's not enough to just say we stop, right? We actually have to help our nervous system calm down. Um, so thank you. Someone mentioned that in the chat, they asked about stimulating the vagus nerve for better sleep. The vagus nerve is really good. I'm no expert on this. The vagus nerve is really good at helping us calm down. I'm not sure it's directly related to sleep, but again, this is not something I'm an expert at, but it is really good at helping us calm down. So that is definitely something that you can look into. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Again, I can't see the chat. So if you have questions, just feel free to ask them in the Q&A feature. Thanks. So again, we're just talking about transitioning from fight or flight, the sympathetic nervous system, to the parasympathetic nervous system, just that part of us that helps calm down. So just think about this speeding train idea. I want to talk a little bit about research behind sleep and to kind of help you understand why things like emotional distress and hyperarousal actually do make it difficult for you to sleep. So, there's extensive research that goes into about how unresolved emotional distress and repetitive daytime stress creates a sense of chronic hyperarousal. And that hyperarousal, our nervous system being hyperactivated, makes it very difficult for us to sleep at night. There's this phrase they use in the research called the slow dissolving of emotional distress, which I love. And that's in a large way what self-care is all about. It's the slow dissolving of emotional distress. That is what helps us feel better. It helps us calm down. Allowing ourselves to process the chaos in our life puts us in a much better position to be able to help our nervous system slow down. And then being able to downshift from worries and high activation throughout the day is the key to slowing down our nervous system. Again, that's really focusing around how we care for ourselves and the conscious intentional signals that we send. So part of the challenges that many of us face when it comes to sleep is racing thoughts, right? So that persistent racing thoughts, the rumination, the things that keep our mind active. And partly what that is our mind is preparing us for whatever's next. It doesn't really understand that, oh, it's time for rest, it's time for sleep. There isn't a next for some time because it's been in this what's next, what's next, what's next, what's next mode. That's essentially being on guard, right? That's fight or flight mode. So we need to help calm that down, but that's why that happens. Same with hyperarousal. A couple of other things that happen too is an inconsistent circadian rhythm, right? So if you're inconsistently going to bed at different times, and I mean like if you're going to bed at 6 o'clock at night and then you're going to bed at 10 o'clock at night and you're going to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, that's really difficult for our bodies to adjust to. If you're going to sleep at 10 o'clock at night and 10:30 at night and 11 o'clock at night and 10:15 and like that's fine, right? There's a margin of error there that we tend to get used to. The other thing that can also disrupt sleep practices is just like the kind of sleep hygiene stuff that you've probably heard of already. Light, how comfortable you are in your space, stimulants, screen time, things like that, noise, right? So we'll spend a little bit on those things, but mostly we'll be focusing on the stuff you can do during the day. So again, I really just want to help make sure that this is clear. Our nervous system, because of the way that most of our days are structured, we're going from one activity to another, from one task to another, some meeting to this task, to this phone call, to that meeting, to then leaving work, and maybe we're having to grab the kids, or we're doing another errand before this, and then it's dinner, and before we know it, it's just like we're exhausted, but we're so used to being on the go. We're so used to that what's next, what's next, what's next mentality that our nervous system is still on guard, preparing us for what's next, even though there is nothing next anymore. It doesn't know that. We need to send it that signal. So that's really what we're talking about here. So let's look at some 4 tools that I think are going to really help you begin to take care of yourself during the day. And there's kind of 2 keys here that these tools will help you with. One is managing your speed. So again, think about that nervous system as a speeding train, right? Our nervous system is speeding along. We just naturally kind of let it get out of control by going from one activity to another, by moving this way and that way, always having something to do. We're essentially teaching our nervous system there is always something next. The way we help deal with that is we manage our speed. I'm going to talk about this, but I use a term that I call station stops, right? We just want to create station stops during the day where we're pausing and caring for ourselves. The other key is braking distance. So, particularly the more hectic we are and the less time we take for ourselves, the more time we're going to need to break, right, to wind down at night. So, these tools are really going to help you with that. But that I kind of want you to have that perspective as we look at them. So, the first one is mindfulness. I mean, there's an enormous amount of research about the benefits of mindfulness. It reduces brain reactivity, it boosts emotional stability, it quiets racing thoughts. There's a lot of good research about this, and it's such a simple thing to do. And the way I want you to kind of think about mindfulness is it's not really, there's a perception for a lot of people that mindfulness is really about clearing your mind and emptying your mind. And that's not necessarily true. Really, one of the best ways to do mindfulness meditation is to actually focus on something specific. So, focus on your breath. And as we focus on our breath, we can then, like, just say you count your breaths. So, you breathe in, you breathe out, that's one. Breathe in, breathe out, that's two. At some point, your mind is going to start to think because that's what our minds do. Our minds think. And so it starts to think, and you're going to notice it's thinking. Oh, look, my mind is distracted. Let me bring it back. Breathe in, breathe out, one. Breathe in, breathe out, two. Breathe in, breathe. Oh, there goes my mind again, thinking about something else. And you'll just catch it and you'll bring it back. No shame, no frustration, no judgment, right? The brain is doing what it's supposed to do. The mindfulness skill is the noticing when our brain gets distracted. It's the awareness of when our brain gets distracted and being able to pull it back. That's the skill that's going to help you deal with the chaos of your days. Because as you're going through your day, you're going to start to realize at some point the stress is building, right? There's tension in your chest or your stomach or something, right? Your legs are bouncing. Your brain is getting tired, right? These are all signs that we tend to just ignore because we're not as well aware or connected to our bodies. Mindfulness can help us build that level of self-awareness. So we can say, oh, wait a second, I'm starting to feel that like cloudiness in my brain. You know what? I need a break. I'm gonna take a couple minutes and I'm gonna breathe and I'm gonna count my breaths, or I'm gonna do a grounding activity or whatever it is. We're gonna go through some of those. But that's really where mindfulness becomes so powerful, is not just the way it helps slow us down, but also the way it helps us build self-awareness. When we look at mindfulness in terms of a station stop, we're talking about micro pauses. So small moments, again, just a couple minutes, maybe even a minute if that's all you can handle, right? Like if that's all you have, but just breathe in and out 10 times. Just something that says to our nervous system, hey, I know it's crazy. Things are going crazy, but we're still safe. We're still okay. We can take these breaths and we're going to be fine. And then we'll go and figure out what we need to do next. Right now, we're just go, go, go. And that it's too much for our brain. So this will help slow that down. Movement is another really good option, right? Exercise and movement, it regulates cortisol in our circadian rhythm, right? So it helps normalize how much of our body's stress hormones that we have, and it reinforces the healthy sleep-wake cycle. It helps improve our mood. It reduces tension. It increases deep sleep, right? Because we're genuinely just more tired when we're physically exert ourselves. Um, so someone asked, just while we're here, someone asked, do I believe some foods have beneficial effects on sleep? I think certainly there are some foods that have detrimental effects on sleep, things like caffeine, right? Anything that has caffeine in it is a problem. I think something like chamomile tea, like I use chamomile tea, it doesn't make me sleepy, but it makes me feel better. And if I feel better, I tend to feel calmer. So it's kind of like that's the way I think about it. There are probably things that have real scientific benefits, but I think it's also just if having a warm cup of tea is something that helps you feel good at night before you go to sleep, as long as it doesn't have caffeine in it, I think that's a great idea, right? If there are other routines that help you feel calmer and better, right? That's something to incorporate into your nightly ritual, which we'll talk about at the end. Someone else asked a question, does sex regulate cortisol even when it feels very stimulating? So uh, I'm not sure about that. I do know that partly because the exertion of sex and partly because climax does provide that release, that it can be a way of releasing that energy. And so you please don't tell your partner that I said you should have sex because it helps you sleep. But if it helps you sleep, I'm all for it for sure. And when we look at things like station stops in for movement, right? It doesn't mean like having to get up in the middle of the day and run around the block for 2 minutes, right? If you can get out and walk for half an hour, great, do it. Totally. Like I took a 45-minute walk before this workshop because I was like, I haven't been outside in a couple days. It's been raining here. I took my walk, had a good exercise, felt so much better. But also, like when it rained and I couldn't get outside, I did a lot of stretching. And so something like station stops for stretching can be really good, right? Just gentle movements. I'm going to talk a little bit about things like Tai Chi, things like yoga, anything that helps slow down your body. And while you're stretching, right, if you're counting, right, counting 20 seconds, 30 seconds for your stretch, do that slowly, do that in a more meditative, mindfulness way, and you get this extra benefit out of the experience. So again, it's just thinking about how can we use these moments during the day to slow down our nervous system. Another question. Wendy asks about mindfulness videos and things like that. So I actually, on my website, I'm pretty sure I still have a free mindfulness guide. So if you want to get started with mindfulness, and it's not like me teaching you, it's actually I provide a ton of resources of if you like to read a book, here are some good books. If you like to look at videos, here are some good videos. If you like to like listen to podcasts or whatever, here's some good podcasts. Really kind of connecting you to the information. So my website is buildonyourstrengths.com, Wendy, buildonyourstrengths.com. So you can go there or tomorrow I'll just include that in the list of things that I send out. And so you'll get it that way. Josephine asks about how many station stops should you do daily? I'm going to get to that in a moment, Josephine. I appreciate you jumping ahead. That's great. I like it when people like lead me to where I want to go. Um, And oh, I'm sorry. And Josephine also asked, I skipped her earlier question. Josephine also asked about how much time should we allocate for winding down? So that's a really good question. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but really the idea is you need enough time, right? So I can't say 15 minutes because 15 minutes, if you've been going at it all day, 15 minutes may not be a long enough time. But let's talk about when we get through the routine of things that you can do as part of your wind down process and then kind of see where we're at. And if you want to ask that question again, please go ahead. Okay. So this is my favorite one. Those of you that know me know that I spend as much time in nature as I can, and that nature is a incredibly powerful um, medicine for me. And um, so it's hard to do nature in the middle of the day, right? But let's quickly talk about the value of nature. It calms our stress response. So it lowers cortisol levels, it lowers our blood pressure. It helps signal that we're safe, which of course reduces the fight or flight response. It helps quiet overthinking. and it boosts our rest and digest functions, the parasympathetic nervous system. So, enormous benefits. For those of you that live near nature, absolutely try to spend more time there if you can. The trick is if you don't live near nature, what really qualifies as nature? That's a good question. If you have two routes to go home, one that's more through like a suburban neighborhood and one that might be more along a park or woods or something, right? Try taking the one along the woods and see how that feels. Maybe even stopping and pulling over for a few minutes and just looking at the trees, right? We we don't know how it's going to affect you, but we know that the effect is usually positive. So opening yourself up to it can be really helpful. So like if, I mean, I used to work in Manhattan for a very long time, but right across the street was a cemetery. And I know that sounds weird, but it was a cemetery that had benches and it had cherry blossoms. And it was just such a beautiful place to sit and just be for a few minutes in the chaos of the city when I was working. So like it doesn't have to be like a 6 mile hike into the middle of nowhere. It's some connection with nature that is going to help do something for you. And one of the things that I really want to emphasize is we have, it's a weird way of thinking about it, but like think about kind of like we have like 100 pounds of stress. Think of a scale, right? We have a scale that goes like this. We have like 100 pounds of stress weighing this part down. We're trying to add all these self-care activities to this part so that we can just even it out maybe a little bit. Anything that we do that helps offset some of the stress is good, right? So 3 minutes of looking at a tree could be helpful to us. Will it offset everything? No. But if we combine that with a few other activities during the day and maybe some more intentional activities at night before we go to sleep, we're really starting to make a difference. And that's really what I want you to be thinking about. The answer isn't, let's do 3 hours of this. The answer is, can I do this 5 times a day, 7 times a day for 2 minutes at a time and see if that begins to help slow down my nervous system? So that's kind of how I think about this, right? What we're trying to do is just even out this scale a bit. Even if you don't have access to nature, but you've been on vacations where there's been nature, right? Look at those photos. Create a little album of photos, of nature photos that make you feel good, that remind you of good feelings, right? Again, it's not like a miracle, but it is going to make a little bit of difference. Infusing ourselves with something positive is going to help tell our nervous system that we're safe and it's going to help slow us down. And that's what managing this speed of this nervous system train is all about. We're trying to help remind ourselves that we're safe and help let it know that it's okay to slow down. I'm just looking at some of the questions. So there's a question about alcohol. I'm I think that's more of a preference thing. There's definitely some research that says that alcohol can disrupt sleep. It's really up to you. I'm not, uh, that's not going to be my focus. Obviously, getting drunk is not the best idea on a consistent basis. Um, I mean, birds, there's just enormous research about how good birds are, even though watching hawks eat baby birds might be tough, but it is pretty awesome. Um, and Letitia asks, do you believe digital detox or taking media diets help improve sleep? So I mean, that is certainly tricky in the sense of, again, it's like how often, how do you use it? But I'm all about awareness, all about self-awareness. And the thing that happens a lot with digital tools, whether that's our phones or whether that's now AI and things like social media, that we get lost in it. That getting lost doesn't actually make us feel better. It just distracts us. But as soon as we're done, all of that stuff is still there. And that's my main concern. What we want to be doing is making more intentional efforts to heal ourselves, to care for ourselves, to allow ourselves to connect to our feelings, express our feelings, so that we're not carrying so much all the time. And so, do I think it's good to disconnect from technology? Absolutely. But it's more of a sense of like wanting to set aside time that is for ourselves, for caring for ourselves, for that healing process. Not so much just doing it to say, hey, I just took a day off from technology. Aren't I amazing? Right? Like that's less helpful and more about, can you take time during the day where you're not using it so that you can read a book that helps you feel better, listening to music that helps you feel better. You may be using your phone to do that, but that's okay, right? So the answer is a bit long-winded, Letitia. I apologize. But the answer is really, I would rather you think about being aware of what you need and what will help you. Often, it is not technology that helps us. It is technology that distracts us. And that distraction doesn't do us good. I I watch TV like everybody else does, right? I also spend a lot of time focusing on my self-care. And so that's a distinction. There are time where it's like you just need to be distracted, and that's fine. Are you also devoting time to care for yourself? That's really the key. So let's talk about connection. Um, so connection is also really important, right? Self-care isn't just about doing things on our own, but it's about being connected with other people. So it activates the oxytocin and safety circuits. Again, it buffers stress because when we're with other people, we tend to come to an equilibrium of stress for good or for better or for worse. But that equilibrium often helps us all feel a little bit better when it comes to stress, that co-regulation that happens together. And then certainly things like loneliness and depression have um, difficult impacts on sleep, right? Makes sleep harder and more challenging. And so being able to connect with other people is really important. Some of that is just being social with our friends and family, right? Particularly in the age of technology and an AI, that's really more important to have these physical interactions, or at least be on the phone or a video call, right? But the way that we can think about it in terms of micro connections is like station stops again, is just check-ins, right? Just reaching out to a friend and just saying, hey, I was thinking about you. Hope you're okay. And then they respond, and there's this moment of like goodness. They're just like, okay, I'm not alone in this world. I feel connected. Some of that can just reassure our nervous system, hey, we're safe. Hey, we're loved, we're cared for. We matter, and we're going to be okay. It's okay to just pause for a moment and not worry about anything. So again, it's really just taking these four things. There are some ways that you can do them in a more intensive area, right? You can do mindfulness meditation for an extended period of time. You can do the nature, you can do exercise, you can do connections with other people for extended periods of time, which are all really good for you. But you can also do them on short little moments, short little connections or short moments of breathing, exercise, nature, etc., that would also help just during the day, again, to just even out that scale as much as you can. So let's talk about station stops because that keeps coming up, obviously. So there's two ways to think about station stops. Station stops are these intentional pauses during your day, right? We don't, we aren't, we often aren't as busy as we think we are, but because our nervous system gets used to being hyped up, we get used to being hyped up, right? So we may have 5 minutes between a meeting, and we could use that 5 minutes to actually take a breath, focus on our breathing, check in with ourselves, process whatever's happened. But often we're just like, oh, let me see if I can get one last email in, or if I make this quick phone call and then I'll be a couple minutes late, but then I'll get there, right? Like that just keeps us activated. It keeps us hyped up and doesn't do anything to help us calm down. So intentional pauses. And then part of that also is just this self-awareness that I keep talking about. We don't know what we need until we take some time to actually pay attention to what's happening inside our body and inside our minds, right? We don't know what we're feeling if we're so busy focused on what's happening out there. So these station stops allow us to pause, but also allow us to check in with ourselves and really see what it is that we might need. And the way that I think about it, right, we've talked a lot about this rushing impulse and just this sense that we just don't have time to pause, right? But I'm arguing that we probably have more time than we think we do. I'm not saying we have an extra 2 hours in our day, but we don't have to run as fast as often as we do. And so trying to find those times, the transitions between our activities, right? We leave a meeting and we don't have the next meeting for another few minutes, or we just got off a phone call and we have a few minutes to figure out what's next. We just sent an email, whatever it is, we finished a task, we've run an errand, we're about to leave for work, we're transferring subways, or we're commuting in the car. There are all these places where there's actually hidden time in our day that we can, if we want, really look in, figure out what we need, practice some breathing exercises, practice some grounding exercises, think about the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. That again helps slow our nervous system down. Again, the idea being, right, this our nervous system is this speeding train. The more often we can help that speeding train slow down, the less overall speed it's going to have, and the slower it will be going when it's time for us to end our day. So, what do they look like? I talked earlier about how photos can sometimes evoke something for you. So, I took this photo. This is from Florida, from a preserve in Florida. And this tree is just absolutely fascinating. And every time I look at this tree, I pause for a moment, just sort of like, whoa, that's an incredible tree. That's a moment, right? Is that enough to like offset everything? No, but it's enough to add to it. And I just need to keep having those moments. So that even just looking at this pause is really helpful. So I'm going to walk you through some breathing exercises in a moment, but there are deep breathing exercises that you can do. There's gentle movement that you can do, right? We talked a little bit about stretching. The environmental shift doesn't have to be actually going out into nature. It could be just opening a window and getting fresh air. It can be standing out in the sun if there's sun for a few minutes. Another really important thing to do is thinking about like what you've already achieved today, right? You just get something done. Don't start thinking about what's next. Bask for a moment. Hey, that's really cool. I just got that thing done. Hey, I sent out that email to my boss. Whew, I feel better about that. That's good. You know, I made that phone call. I was not looking forward to that phone call, but it's over. I did it. It's taken care of. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Right? That even just that is this acknowledgement that like, hey, we're doing good. We're doing well. We're making progress. We're okay. We're safe, right? Fundamentally, our nervous system is attuned to whether we're safe or in danger. The more we can keep telling it that we're safe, the more that it's going to start to realize, oh, okay, we can slow down. And then the visual calming, the picture we saw earlier is a picture that I took in the Gulf of Mexico. And so, beautiful sunset there. This photo actually behind me is I took on the in the Gulf of Mexico. So like I will incorporate those in so much of what I do because I feel better. It helps me. It adds a moment of calm. And we need just lots of moments of calm. So let's do this practice together. Um, there are three different types of breathing exercises that I'm sharing with you. One is the what's called the 5/7 breathing, which is inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 7 seconds. There's also box breathing, which is breathing in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And then there's counting breaths, which is just breathing in, breathing out, 1, breathing in, breathing out, 2. Okay. We're going to focus on that third one just for now. We're just going to do it for maybe 10 breaths. So that's all you got to do. Don't even have to worry about the meditation part of it. You're just going to breathe in, breathe out. Try to let your exhale be a little bit longer than your inhale. When we exhale longer than we inhale, we're telling our nervous system that it's okay to calm down, that we're not at risk anymore. So let's do that together. I'll start you off and then we'll be silent for a little bit. You can have your eyes open or closed, whatever your preference is. Okay, let's breathe in. Okay, how is that for everybody? For just 10 breaths, can you feel a difference? Right? You could probably feel like it just slowed you down a little bit. For me, it's always wild to do it because when I'm doing these workshops, my nervous system is activated. I'm kind of hyped up. And then we do this and I just feel everything like slow down. Um, so it's a little more pronounced for me probably than it may be for you while we do this. But I just want to highlight for you, right? Like that was just 10 breaths, probably 10, 15 seconds, maybe, right? And it felt a little bit better, probably. So imagine if you did that 10 times during the day, just 10 times. Just like I wake up in the morning, I'm going to do that. After breakfast, I'm going to do that. Get to work, going to do that, so on and so forth, right? Even just that would make such a big difference for you. So let's talk a little bit about winding down. The thing I want to highlight here is we don't think about this enough, I think, but how safe and comfortable do you feel in your bedroom, right? Is it clean enough for you? Do you like your sheets? Do you like your pillows? Do you like your mattress, your comforter? Do you have like reminders there that help you feel something good before you go to sleep? The example that I give is I used to live in a house that had like right by my bed, there was this kind of little corner area, and it somehow always collected stuff. Obviously, I had nothing to do with that, and it just would like collect stuff. And one Sunday, I was just like fine, and I was able to clean it up. And that night, when I went to bed and I looked at the corner, and I like I didn't know I was holding tension about it, but when it was gone, I felt the relief. And I think we probably all have lots of stuff like that in our lives that we just don't think about, but is there that we're just carry. So I hope you'll take this workshop as kind of a chance to like look at your bedroom in a fresh new way. A few things to really think about are like, do you like, so I used to have a glass of sand that on my nightstand because I love the beach so much. And so I had collected sand from a beach and then brought it. And sometimes I would squish it, sometimes I would smell it. Just looking at it sometimes brought me like a moment of joy, right? Like having things like that in your bedroom that kind of just remind you of something good, something pleasant, something feels good are all ways of just setting yourself up for better success when it's time to sleep at night. The one thing I will say about your bedroom, for those of you that actually have the option, if you don't have to work in your bedroom or don't work on your bed, then don't. It's really helpful to keep your bed a place for sleeping. But, you know, if you live in a one bedroom apartment in New York City, you might be working on your bed. And so you just kind of try and deal with that, right? But if you don't have to, don't. So I forgot to tell you this earlier, but if you want to go to jgs.net/sleep, I created a document for you that you can create your own going to sleep routine. So I'll give you a second to look this up. It should be, if jgs.net/sleep doesn't work, try www.jgs.net/sleep. But that should take you to a Google Doc that I have, and you just go to File, Download, and you can save your own copy. And then you can make notes as we go through this, or you don't have to. There's no pressure. I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted to take it. So here are some of the things that here are the things that we're gonna cover. So the personalizing your space, I talked a little bit about that, right? Blankets, pillows. But again, think about like meaningful objects, meaningful photos, right? So I used to have like a beautiful wooden carving of lovebirds that was from Ecuador. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And it would just be on my nightstand. And every time I saw it, it was just like, oh, that's really cute. Like excuse me, things like that will really help just lighten your bedroom a little bit and make it feel more comfortable for you. Think about lighting, so if you have dimmers, dimming your lights is really nice. If you have overhead lights and lamps, s- refrain from using overhead lights as it gets later in the night and just use these smaller lamps. If you really want to have some fun with it, you can use something like Alexa, like smart lights, smart bulbs, and you can kind of control the colors of them and stuff if you want. Think about scents, like smells that you want to use. There's all kinds of things that you can do that might help, again, just sort of put you in a nice place before you get into bed. A candle can be something good, though obviously just please be careful about blowing the candle out before you go to sleep. Uh, Journaling is a really excellent idea to deal with racing thoughts, to deal with when you feel like you've got so much on your mind. I would suggest doing that before you get into bed because you want to kind of equate dealing with that outside of your bedroom, right? So if you start putting down those racing thoughts, do that outside of bed, and then you can go to bed in a little bit kind of fresher place. We touched on this earlier, but mindful tech use, right? So setting a tech curfew if you want, right? So I everything that I use is on my phone. I read Kindle on my phone. I listen to music on my phone, but I use the night light version, like the way that you can set it so it's a dark mode and the way that it sets the night light so that it's softer. And I just use that actually during the whole day. I don't even turn that on at night. I just use it all day. So like there's different ways that you can play around with this, but if you read books at night, like actual physical books, plug your phone in another room, put some music on and read your book and get some sleep. Movement, so again, stretching, particularly if you're feeling a little agitated or a little bouncy, right? Stretching, light yoga, Tai Chi. I don't know if you've ever done Tai Chi, but there are some really excellent videos of Tai Chi out there that you can just kind of begin to learn some of the basics. You don't have to be like a professional Tai Chi person, but the movements of Tai Chi can be very calming and very soothing. What kind of, do you listen to music at night? Do you like, there's Apple and Spotify, YouTube, they all have like sleep genres. They have all different kinds of sleep music. There's nature sounds, white noise, all of that stuff. So adding that as a component to help kind of calm you down and quiet your mind might be really helpful. I like as soon as I'm done with the night, like I'll put on quiet music, like calming music, even as I'm getting ready for bed, when I do my stretching, things like that, because it just signals my body that it's time to start the wind down process. Audiobooks and sleep podcasts are really good. I'll talk about those in a second. Particularly if you sleep with someone else and you want to be able to listen to sound or listen to an audiobook, I recommend Bluetooth sleep masks. These are like life changers, I think. It's just a sleep mask, so it blocks out the light, but it has speakers on the sides of the on your ears, but they're soft, so you can, if you're a side sleeper like I am, it doesn't bother you, you don't feel it, and it just connects to your phone. And so that's really nice. I love it. It's also really great on airplanes, in case you're curious. And then you can also do reading. The important distinction here, right? Not social media, not scrolling the news. That's not reading. That's just mostly torture. You want to avoid heavy or stimulating content. So I tend to say not nonfiction, right? Like avoid nonfiction, just because that might be something that's interesting. But a good fiction book that kind of takes you to another place is really great at quieting your mind and allowing you to just focus on this one thing and relaxing until you really feel like you're ready to get some sleep. So that's all well and good until it doesn't actually work. And then what do you do? And so let's talk a little bit about that. One is let's be really compassionate about the way we talk to ourselves, right? It's so easy to get down on ourselves when we're talking about sleep, right? When we have trouble sleeping. So just as soon as you hear yourself like being judgmental or harsh on yourself about sleep, just say like, I've had nights where I've had trouble sleeping before. I'll be okay. How can I help myself now? What do I need now? How do I care for myself now? I'll be fine tomorrow. I always have been. That's not a concern. What do I need right now? So there are a few different things, right? You can stay still for a moment, right? You can just lay in bed. As soon as you're awake, you realize that you're having trouble sleeping. You can kind of lay in bed, start breathing, see if that helps you notice areas of tension. If you feel like your arm or your legs are really tight, try clenching them up and letting them go. Just breathing slowly, seeing if that helps kind of loosen your some of the tension that you're feeling. You can shift gently, right? Feel free to get out of bed. This is a good time to do some more stretching if you want. Sit in a different spot and just sort of kind of take some of the pressure off, like having to sleep, right? Take some of that pressure off. Read something calming again. Um, Obviously, avoid screens if you can, avoid bright lights, particularly, right? One really good thing that I find that I know when I recommend to people, sometimes they're like, that's weird, but it does seem to help, is audiobooks or sleep podcasts. And the thing that I love about audiobooks is that if you get a good narrator who's just narrating, who's not like acting and performing, right? But a good narrator who's just reading the book, basically, all of a sudden it's harder to be distracted by our own thoughts because we're focused on this voice that's inside our head, right? So we're listening to this voice. Everything starts to focus on this voice. The rest of us starts to kind of wind down a little bit. Even if you don't actually fall back to sleep, but you listen to this person reading a book for an hour and you're just kind of in that place in between rest, like in between awake and asleep, you're still getting rest. And that's really important because that's still good for your body. It's still good for your mind. And it's certainly better than getting stressed out and upset and over that, right? Last night was actually a perfect example. Ironically, I'm obviously doing this sleep workshop tonight, and I live in Oakland, California for now, for the next 2 months maybe. And uh, I had the it was a 4.8 earthquake at 1:40 a.m., which is the biggest one that I've ever had to deal with because I grew up on the East Coast. I don't usually get earthquakes. And so it jolted me awake. I mean, jolted. And then it took me forever to have my nervous system be like, oh, we're okay, we're okay. So, but I listened to an audiobook and it just like, at least I was getting rest and that really helped. And again, just be kind to yourself. You know, it's always better to be kind to yourself. So it's a little too late in the day for most of you to think about station stops today, but that's something you can start tomorrow. But tonight, you can think about some of the wind down activities. You can use the sheet that I shared with you, or just look at the what we talked about tonight. And you know, I think it's really good to even just do basic things like when you get into bed to just remind yourself that you're safe. I know that seems kind of cheesy, but at the heart of all of our anxiety is a feeling that we're not safe. Our nervous system is just categorizing life as safe or risky, safe or danger. So if we can help convince it that it's safe, we're going to just feel a lot better. And then again, if you wake during the night, be kind to yourself. Take one of these activities that you can do, listen to an audiobook, stretch, soothe your muscles, whatever you got, right? Resting is really important. Resting is a lot better than not resting. Sleep is better than resting, but resting is still good. And just remember, you don't have to sleep perfectly every night. That's not possible. That's not gonna happen, right? So just you're gonna have some bad nights. That happens. Don't worry too much about it. Just focus on trying to get back, building this routine that you have and taking care of yourself. We're going to skip this for now because we're running over. Sorry about that. Um, so, station stops, be patient with yourself, compassionate to yourself, trust your body, right? That's really kind of hopefully what you're getting out of tonight. If you like this workshop, I want to tell you a couple things and then I'll get to the rest of the questions that came up. Um, so, if listening to me seemed to help in any way, I've got three different ways that you can think about working with me more. I do coaching intensives. These are 2 hour intensives, right? So this is an hour of just mostly me talking to you. The coaching intensive is 2 hours. Part of that is education on this particular topic, but then we actually get into practice. So last month we did internal family systems, which is all about different parts. This month I'm focusing on um, cognitive management, CBT techniques, change your thoughts, change your life. It should be really interesting. If you're prone to ruminating, things of that nature, this is going to help you. And again, this is not just sitting and listening to me like this. It's a small group. It's limited to 15 people. Last time we had 14 people, so it won't be any more than that. And there's a good chunk of that time is going to be spent with you practicing these activities and asking me questions and us working on it together. So that's those. There, I also run something called an integration circle, which is a monthly coaching group, and that's also limited to a small group of people. I say around 10. We haven't had that many yet. So again, I think that's probably going to be the limit. But it's 60 minutes. We get together, we talk about what we've done well during the month, something that we're proud of that we achieved on our healing journey in terms of taking care of ourselves. And then a couple people tend to bring up issues that are affecting them. And I work with them on what they can do, skills that they can learn, so on and so forth, so that everybody also benefits. And then if you want to work, if one-on-one is more your style, you want to work directly with me, you can schedule a free clarity call. Just so you know how these clarity call works, it's basically like a mini session. It's 30 minutes. We get on a call, a video call. You tell me what you want to work on. You get a sense of what it's like to work with me. You can ask me any questions that you want. I will not let you schedule with me while we're on the call. I do not want you to feel any pressure. This is too important to feel pressured into. After the call, I'll send you an email with the coaching agreement, which we'll talk about, and a link to schedule. And then it's up to you. I will probably follow up in a week or so just to as a friendly reminder, but that's it. There's I just I'm not a pressure guy. I really don't want to be a pressure guy. So that's my approach. So let's talk about what's coming up here. So the coaching intensive is in 2 weeks. You probably want to register for that as soon as you can. That again, that's the 2 hour coaching intensive. The monthly integration circle, the next one is in 4 weeks. I think actually. It's the end of the month. There's an extra Thursday in this month, which was confusing to me and threw me off. So it's at the end of this month. And then next month's free workshop is on interactive journaling with AI. So it's using AI for self-awareness and growth and emotional support. I have a ton to say about that. I also do a live demo usually in that workshop, so you can kind of see what it's like if you've never done it before. The next coaching intensive is on self-compassion, which is going to be really good, kind of helping you kind of change your inner critic to your inner ally. And then again, there's the integration circle at the end of May. So really, it's just a question of what do you need now? If you're just starting, come back to the next monthly workshop, see how you feel. If you want more intensive work, that's available to you. Okay, so let's get to, let me leave it here. So let's get to some questions. Where was I? Nancy made a good point, which thankfully I listened to. Um, so Carla brought up that sometimes people are difficult to deal with. And I think like part of the challenge of kind of what I say being on this healing journey of growing, of constantly kind of enhancing our personal growth, our self-awareness, our understanding of ourselves, is that we can sometimes tend to outgrow the people in our lives, which is frustrating for sure. I totally understand that. Um, but it also gives us an opportunity to find people that are better matched to the way we are. And so it's tough. That's a lot of where self-care comes in terms of just dealing with that process. Callie asked, why does talking with a friend wake me up versus relax me? I mean, I think it really depends. I mean, it depends on a lot of things, but if you have an energetic conversation with a good friend, like that's totally invigorating, right? Like that's gonna wake you up because it's getting you juiced. It's not necessarily like activating the safety fight flight circuits of your nervous system, right? Because like when we do exercises, sometimes exercises wakes us up, but it doesn't necessarily activate the fight flight of our nervous system. So, Callie, my sense is from what you're talking about is that when you're talking with a really good friend and you're really enjoying yourself, that it's just like filling you with life and joy and goodness. And that's great, right? So that's not something that you'll do at, 12 o'clock at night before you go to sleep, but something when you do at dinner is going to be really nice. Uh, Oh, so Wendy asks about the specific breathing. So first, I'm just going to tell you there is science, I'm sure, about all of this stuff, but it doesn't really matter that much, right? If you're breathing, breathing is good. If you're consciously thinking about breathing, breathing is good. I think they typically tell you to breathe in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. But again, there's no real right or wrong way. It's not like it's not going to count if you breathe through your mouth or you only breathe out through your nose, right? Like it's more important to actually just do it, to take that time to count your breaths, to be focused in that moment and to be calm than it is to do it whatever the right way is. I hope that answers that question. Does journaling help and is part of self-care? Yes. I, so this person went on to say, I actually end up being distracted and thinking a lot when writing and feel like it defeats the purpose. I think I would argue that it's the opposite. I would argue that what you're doing is by starting the writing process, you're opening yourself up and you're finding that there's so much stuff that needs to be processed that it may feel overwhelming to do it, but then you stop and then that stuff is still kind of stuck needing to be processed. So My suggestion is actually write more. If talking out loud is better, you can also just talk out loud, right? It doesn't have to be written down, but certainly that's great to be able to review it and look it over later on. So I would say it's probably a sign that you've got too much going on in your head, so that when you start writing, more of it is like, no, 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 talk about me, write about me, get this out too. And so you've got some catching up to do, basically. What I suggest is give yourself a certain amount of time, let's say 15 minutes. If you can do 30 minutes, great, but let's start at 15 minutes. 15 minutes of writing. When you're done at the 15 minutes and you don't want to do it anymore, then just stop and be like, okay, I got everything out I could. That's great. I'm either going to do some more later today or I'll do some more tomorrow. But this will be like the you're it just helps your body and your mind to know that you have this set way of processing your feelings. And so if you say, I'm going to set aside this time to do it, and you do it, your body starts to get used to that. So that can be really valuable. I hope that helps. Um, I've heard it's good to get up if you can't sleep after like 10, 15 minutes so you don't associate your bed with stress. I mean, again, yes, but also if you are sitting there, lying there listening to music and you feel relatively calm, you're just not falling asleep, that's different, right? If you're sitting there beating yourself up because you can't sleep, then get out of bed, right? Like that's not doing you any good. Like try and be kind to yourself, be compassionate, get up, move around, distract yourself in a more healthy way. So it really depends. Like I will lie in bed for hours sometimes if I can't sleep, just listening to an audiobook. But I'm not stressing about the fact that I can't sleep. I'm just laying there listening to a book, getting rest. So again, it's really kind of how it is. Um, Magnesium, I'm not in a position to be giving you know, clinical advice about what you should take and what you shouldn't take. There is some research that magnesium helps. I would talk to a doctor or other professional about that. Um, do you need to adjust your sleep wind down routine in different stages of life? Yes, absolutely. I mean, first of all, what's happening with our bodies changes as we get older. Secondly, the amount of sleep changes as we get older. Thirdly, the amount of stress level that we have in our lives changes as we get older. So, yes, you want to keep adjusting it. What worked for me, 10 years ago is different now, and it will continue to be different years down the road. But I think once you build a structure of like how you think about a wind down routine, that will really help because then you're just tweaking it, right? You're not starting from scratch every time. How can you avoid falling asleep with the lights on if you listen to podcasts before bed? I'm not sure I understand the question. So if you don't mind following up with that, just let me know. That would be great. Is it more important to sleep when you were tired, especially later if you slept in during the day, or to sleep always at a consistent time? I mean, Pauline, I think that depends a lot. I think it, right? Like there are some nights where you're going to be just more tired than other nights and go to sleep. But like there are some nights where you're less tired and you're going to stay up a little bit later. That's fine, right? I think it's more important to um, be in tune to what your body needs. And if you really feel like your body needs sleep and it's an hour earlier than you normally would go to sleep, go for it, right? Like your body is telling you something. It's good to listen to that. Uh, Navy asked if I would please send the link to the Google Doc on sleep. So if you couldn't access it, it was jjs.net/sleep. If you can't, um, if you can't get that, I'll include it tomorrow. I'll send the link tomorrow I send a list of links. So I'll include it tomorrow. But thank you that's a good reminder. Uh, Christy asked, thank you for if how to start the CBD coaching intensive. So on Meetup, actually, Give me 1 second. I'll show you on the screen. If you go to jgs.net/IC, nope, that's the integration circle. I'm so silly. If you go to jgs.net/intensive, that should take you to my meetup where you can register for the CBT coaching intensive. But I'll send you info on that again tomorrow as well. Thank you for asking that, Christy. I appreciate you supporting me. What can you do to sleep well if you just had a fight? Okay, so that's a really good question, Navy. Um, what happens when we have turmoil right before bed? We have a fight with our partner or family member. What do we do? It's tough, particularly if we're going to try and sleep with that partner, right? Like sleeping in the same bed with that partner when we're angry. That's tough. You want to try and process as much as you can, right? You want to try and deal with it, talk it out, remind each other that even though you're fighting, that you still care about each other and you love each other, like that your relationship is important, that you'll still figure this out. And if that doesn't work, you need to spend some time on your own processing your feelings, then I would do that before you go to bed. But yeah, that's a really hard situation, Navy, and I'm glad you brought that up. Carla. Thanks. Um, thank you. What do I suggest journaling about before bed? Okay, Marina, that's a good question. So I think there's a few things to think about. One is we can talk about just like a few questions to think about, right? So how did I feel today? Did anything happen that bothered me today? Is there anything I'm really proud about what happened today? Just those simple kinds of questions would be a good place to start. Sometimes I think once you start writing the first few words, you'll find that there's just other stuff that's itching to come out. And when you journal, by the way, Marina, you don't have to worry about writing prose. It can be filled with typos, it can be grammatically incorrect. It doesn't matter. You're just trying to get the stuff out. If you want to go back and rewrite it, that's fine. But as you're expressing yourself, just let it out. And if that fills with typos and mistakes and blah, 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 that's totally fine. It's so much better to get that out, be in touch with what you're trying to say. And then if you want to fix it, you can fix it, but you don't even have to because presumably no one's going to see it anyway. So, again, for those of you that have talked about journaling, I think that's something that's really important is just focus more on the experience of expressing yourself and less about trying to uh, be, poetic or, Stephen King or whatever when you're writing. I'm sure most of you are not trying to be Stephen King when you're writing. Uh, Nancy. Nancy asked, how do I keep in touch with you so that I'm able to register for what's coming up? So if you registered on Meetup, you probably are on my mailing list. But Nancy, if you go to my website at buildonyourstrengths.com, which is buildonyourstrengths.com, or you could also go to jgs.net. That's a shortcut if you want to do that. There's a way to sign up to be on my mailing list. But also check Meetup because all of my workshops and coaching intensives and everything are in Meetup. Thank you. I appreciate it. Also tomorrow, I think when I send you the stuff, I think my email address will be there, so you can reach out to me that way too. Uh, so Carla brings up the fact of like, what about eating, before bed? Yes, I mean, there's definitely research about eating late is not good for your health, and it's certainly not good for weight management and things like that. Also, like, I'm just, let's not add additional stress to our life. Like, if you've had a really busy day and you can only eat at 8:30, then have a good meal at 8:30, you know? Um, if you're doing that every single night, maybe that's an issue, but you do your best. Like we're just doing our best. That's all we can ask of ourselves. And we want to be kind to ourselves when we're not doing our best. Diana asks, is writing better than typing in a journal? I mean, That's totally personal preference. I no longer know how to write cursive like by hand. I can't do it. I have like worse handwriting than a doctor. So I'm always typing or, using my fingers in my phone when I'm writing stuff. But it's personal preference. And again, it's like this is like when it comes to things like self-care, it's not really so much what the right way to do it, it's what's the way that works for you. And if you feel better one way than the other, then just go for it. It's better to do it that way than not do it at all. How can you avoid falling asleep with the lights on if you read a book in bed if you're exa oh, okay. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's partly an awareness thing, right? So if you're falling asleep and if you're so tired that you're falling asleep while you're reading a book with the lights on, right? We want to have some awareness of like, okay, now I'm starting to get to that point where if I put the book down and turn the light off, I'm going to fall asleep. Um, so like I think that's kind of where you want to get to. The other possibility is, get a sleep mask and when you're ready to fall asleep, put the sleep mask on. You leave the light on all night, but you won't notice because you'll have the sleep mask on. Again, it's like there's maybe a right way to do this, but what I just want you to do is find a way that works for you, you know? So, yeah, sure. Ideally, you'd be able to turn the lights off and put your book away and fall asleep. But if that's what happens, then just get a sleep mask and cover your eyes and turn the lights off in the morning. Oh, smart, Nancy. That was great. Uh, I'm glad. I appreciate that very much. Okay, so that was an excellent series of questions. I think I got all of them. Um, so if you feel like I didn't, I apologize. Oh, Josephine, to get back to your question about how many station stops. So really, I think you can see it's just a matter of trying to do as many as you can, not in terms of like pressure, but just we want to even that scale as much as we can. So we have a lot of stress that's holding us. We want to be able to have a lot of goodness and calm and peace and rest that helps offset that. So, 5 times a day, great. If you can do 10 times a day, awesome. Like the more you can do, the better. But whatever you do is better than what you're doing now. So that's kind of how I think about it. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you all for hanging around. I really appreciate you being here tonight. It was another pleasure to do this. Thank you for joining me. Again, please feel free to check out my website, buildonyourstrengths.com or jgs.net, whichever is easier for you. And I'll send you everything tomorrow morning, my time, which may be still early afternoon, your time. And great. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody. And I hope to see you all soon. Take care.